Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here. It's the 31st of January, last day of the month. So I thought I'd do a video of what I've got, what I managed to get hold of during the month, and put some couple of albums that sort of overran from last year. I didn't get a chance to do over just before Christmas period. Excuse me, my throat's feeling a bit. Oh, that's better. So I'll start off with a CD. I recently picked this up, but this was on Amazon. I did a search. I did a search and found this. It was only going for a few quid. This is the only ones, and it's a double CD set, and it's called Why Don't You Kill Yourself? The CBS recordings. This was released on Edsel in 2004, and over two CDs, you've got all the three Only Ones albums that were released on CBS. Debut Only Ones, which it has the classic Another Girl, Another Planet, and then you've got Even Serpents Shine and Baby's Got a Gun. I mean, what separates the Only Ones from a lot of the punk new wave is they were very musical proficient. I think they had the ex-drummer of Spooky Tooth playing with them, and other members of the band had previous musical experience. Peter Perrett is obviously well known. After the third album, the band split, sort of disintegrated, and Peter Perrett had a real hard fight with his heroin addiction. He has released some solo stuff recently, so that might be worth checking out. So the rest of it is all vinyl records. Let me get any notes just to remind myself what I'm talking about. First up, got this just before Christmas. This is Fleetwood Mac's debut album, 1968, sometimes known as Fleetwood Mac, sometimes known as the Dog and Dustbin album, released in 1968. It just features the band as a four-piece of Peter Green, Jerry Spencer, John McVie and Mick Fleetwood. Bob Brunning, the original bass player, plays on one track, Long Grey Mare. This is a mono on the Blue Horizon label, for those of you who are interested. Great starting blues album. Sort of highlights the talents of the band. If you read classic rock or can get on the Louder website, there is a really revealing interview with Mick Fleetwood. I think partly to do with the promoting the release of the Peter Green tribute concert DVD. Next up, Jeff Beck. I have to excuse the glare where I've got my lights. I'm going to have to look at the seating. This is Blow by Blow, released in 1975. Album produced by George Martin. Really successful in America. Jeff Beck was really starting to find his own feet. I think it was top 10 in America, this album. I'm thinking about the band at the time. He had Max Middleton on keyboards, Phil Chen on bass, and Richard Bailey on drums. Really good album. Then I also found a copy of the follow-up, Wired. Again, produced by George Martin. Jan Hammer started to get more involved with Jeff Beck at this point. Lot of songs. He did a version of Goodbye Pork Pie Hat on here, written by Charles Mingus. Lot of the stuff written on here was written by Narada Michael Walden, who was playing drums at that point. Went on to be a producer, particularly of the disco at the time. This was a surprise to find. This is Budgie's In For The Kill, the 4th album, released in 1974. This reached number 29 in the UK albums charts. It's very rare to find Budgie albums out in the wild. If you do, they're really expensive. Best known track on here is Crash Course for in Brain Surgery, which Metallica covered. Yeah, it's a really good, just a solid rock album. Budgie in the 70s we made some really good stuff. As I said, to get hold of their albums in the wild, very expensive, so I was lucky to get this at quite a good price. My throat is drying up again. It's an album you don't see very often. This is Ian Hunter live. Welcome to the club. It's a double album. 3 sides fits live, and the 4 sides a studio album. There you go. Released in 1980. Opens up with the on the Chrysalis label. Opens up with Shadows FBI, then goes into what Once Bitten Twice Shy. So you've got a mixture of Ian Hunter's solo and his Mott Hoople stuff. So you got all the way from Memphis. He's out on here. I Wish I Was Your Mother. Cleveland Roxy's on here. Does All the Young Dudes. Yeah, a really good solid live album. Mick Ronson's playing with it. It is co-produced with Mick Ronson. Let's put this back in and see Mick Ronson on the back there. Yeah, it's a really not a bad live album. Do like Ian Hunter. I think he's, in fact, he's born the same year as my dad. You know, he's 80. He's going to be 82 this year, Ian Hunter. So remarkable stuff. Van der Graaf Generator 68 to 71. This was issued in 1972 by Charisma. This is what's known as Christmas reissue, Christmas Perspective. That's on the pink Charisma label there. So it's really all the early Van der Graaf Generator stuff. Again, another band that is very difficult to get hold of on vinyl. And if you do see it, it can be ridiculously expensive. They were more successful in Europe, particularly Italy, than they were in the UK. So you've got the tracks on here. Afterwards, Boat of a Million Years, whatever Would Robert Said, Lost, Necromancer, Refugees, Darkness, Killer. But an influential band, John Lydon loves them. Fish is a big fan. In fact, Peter Hamill supported Marillion on their debut tour. By the time he was playing a solo, Pete Hamill's got quite a shrill voice, and it can be difficult on the back of quite a shrill saxophone as well. But it's the back and sort of the band at the time. Yeah, really worth checking. If you've not heard any Van der Graaf Generator, really worth checking out. You've got to stick with it because it's can be quite difficult to listen at times. Album I showed in the vinyl tag. It was my sort of like what I had for Christmas. My niece gave me a Amazon card, so I brought this. This is Rory Gallagher, Against the Grain. This is his 7th album, released in 1975. This is a mixture of new tracks and some covers, classics. Really good album. This artist I've been getting into the last couple of years is Rory Gallagher. I think appreciate how good a guitarist he is. And I've got Kevin Ayers. Yes, we have no bananas, so get your bananas today. This is a sort of play on sort of like a musical song. Yes, we have no bananas, so get your bananas here today. You can get your bananas today. This is Kevin Ayers' 7th album, released in 1976. Kevin Ayers is how can I best describe it? He's typically very whimsical, very English, ex-member of Soft Machine, and probably well known for having his band Mike Oldfield. And in fact, I think he gave Mike Oldfield sort of like a little mini studio thing to help it, which he used to develop Tubular Bells. On here, got a mixture of people on here: Ollie Alsor, BJ Cole and steel guitar. David Bedford does the choral arrangements on the final track, Blue. It's really, I mean, I do like Kevin Ayers. I think it's a lot of humour in his stuff, and some of his stuff can be quite cheap. It's worth checking out. Particularly, I think sometimes he gets forgotten, particularly with the soft machine, because he left quite early, and I think he is a forgotten figure in British music. Changing tack totally, this is Grand Funk Railroad, Grand Funk live album, released in 1970, double live album on the Capitol label. This is basically what it is. It's a really good rocking live album. Critics hated it at the time, but I think they hated Grand Funk Railroad. I think Terry Knight, who was their manager, used every sort of way of trick he could to hype the band up, and it worked because this was phenomenally successful in the States. It is really it just rocks. It's one of those live albums that doesn't get mentioned enough. But once you heard it, you just think, wow, what? Well, this hadn't been in my life. Pete in the shop, I was aware of it. He played it a couple of times. That's one of the sides of it, and it came up in one of his virtual digs, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to take it. This is just too good not to say no to. Again, sort of changing tracks. I got hold of XTC Drums and Wires. This is the 2020 reissue, remastered by Andy Partridge, for newly cut. It's the third album. In a way, sort of a commercial breakthrough for the band. The band was shifting away. It was quite quirky, the first two albums, and Colin Moulding wanted to shift away. He'd written some more commercial songs. They'd had a minor hit with Life Begins at the Hop, but on here you've got the opening track, he's making plans for Nigel, which was a big hit for the band. What I like about this reissue, when the first album first came out, limited edition came with a 7-inch single, and this reissue has put the 7-inch in. So you got Chain and Command and Limelight. When I showed this album, there was a lot of love shown to it because there's really quite a lot of good tracks. It has the mixture of the commercial sounding Moulding tracks as well as Andy Partridge. It's more esoteric tracks, and it's made me want to actually dig out more of the reissues. They've been doing a fair few of these reissues because this sounds really good. It's on 200 gram. I was a bit worried whether that extra 20 gram might do something to my needle, but it seems to be okay. So yeah, well worth seeking out. Another album, I took the bullet because it came up quite cheap in my Amazon want list, is the Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, released in 1968. This was recorded in Abbey Road in 67. This is one of the classic albums of the late 60s, sort of pop psych. Absolutely did nothing indifference. Generally, most people thought the Zombies time had come and went, particularly in the States. They were more successful in the States than they were in the UK. However, in 1969, they picked up on the last track on here, Time of Season, and it became a surprise hit single for them. The band had already split up when they saw the indifference to this. I think at the time, Colin Blunstone ended up working in a solicitor's office, though he did record a new version of She's Not There as Neil MacArthur. Rod Argent would become would form Argent. And Zombies have sort of got Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone have kept the Zombies name going, so they're still going. Recently in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, really great album. I don't think you need me to tell you how good an album it is. Okay, coming up to the last couple of albums, PJ Harvey Is This Desire, released in 1998. This is her fourth album, and it continues the recent reissues. This is the first one I got because I hadn't got this album previously. The other albums I've got on CD, but it's really good. It was the first album that featured her lyrics inside. Her other albums didn't feature her lyrics. Nice pressing, really good album. I think for the real hardcore PJ Harvey fans, these reissues are mainly for those because they put all the demos out separately. So, and I think this is actually quite cool. It's rather than do a double album of the album and the demos, which would potentially cost the earth. She's done the album and then done the demos separately. So if you want the demos, you can buy it as separate. Which I think is a neat idea, probably the way to go really, and it keeps the price of this album down. Again, having heard this, I'm probably keen to sort of like get hold of the other reissues as well. And finally, I got this, came through Friday. This is Stephen Wilson's The Future Bites. It was originally supposed to have been issued last year, but it was delayed because of COVID. This is sort of like, from the review, sort of split a lot of people. Stephen Wilson's a really clever man, ex-Porcupine Tree. I think it's sort of like, as it says, Future Bites. It's sort of like a little bit of a swipe at modern life. How I've read it, I mean, I think, but it's a neat package. Even though I didn't go for any of the coloured vinyls, I just got a neat package. You know, you got the album, you got one half, you got the booklet, and then you got the record in the other half. The only thing that disappointed me, this was the inner sleeve. And it's just a paper sleeve. And I think if you put all this effort into like the packaging here, I think a better inner sleeve would have been suffice. It's only a slight gripe, but you know, it's worth checking. I watched the video. You may be aware that Stephen Wilson did a one-off box set, which contained a whole load of exclusive stuff, and he put it up for 10 grand. It was bought. Somebody bought it, and the guy who brought it does YouTube videos, and he unboxed it. And it's actually fascinating. I'm not going to tell you what was in it, but it's fascinating what that 10 grand got him. Fair play to him for showing it. I think he's a YouTuber. I don't know if he's shown. First time I've ever seen a video from the guy, but to fork out 10 grand on a one-off. And then there's the boxes. There's also the editions. Amazon had a red vinyl, and I think there's different colour vinyl editions. I wasn't too fussed. An album's an album in the end. It's the music, not the colour of the record that fascinates me. But there you go. So there you go, VC. That's what sort of got me through January. It has been a bit tough, this second lockdown. I have to be honest, there's been days where it's been very difficult. Though we have good moments, and we at the UK VC, we had our monthly Zoom chat where we talked absolute nonsense for a couple of hours. Some of us had a beer, some of us had a few by tea and coffee, but it was just nice just to talk music and wherever. So yes, it is difficult, to be honest, because every day just feels the same. It just feels like there are elements where you just don't know what day it is at the moment. But hey, the vaccines are getting rolled out. Eventually, it will get better. We just got to be patient in the end, I suppose. But anyhow, that's enough of my prevails. I hope everyone is good out there. And I'd like to thank everyone that's subscribed to me. We've had, again, an increase in subscribers, which is always nice. So thank you for that. If you are new to the channel, if it's the first time you've seen it, and you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. Always the more the merrier. Thumbs up, thumbs down, love the interaction. Feel free to leave a comment. I will always try to get back to you. So VC, whatever you get up to this Sunday, it's a bit icy out there, but I might just go for a walk. I've got to get a couple of things. Make sure you have a good one. And look after yourselves. Keep spinning. More importantly, keep smiling.